Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jennie will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. And today I have someone who's not necessarily going to be talking business, but that's okay because I brought Dr. Karah on because I'm going through some shiz. And I imagine, just based on what I know about my audience, you're probably going through shiz or you are about to go through some of this shiz. So let me tell you about Dr. Karah. She is a passionate naturopathic doctor dedicated to transforming lives by guiding women to achieve their ultimate health and wealth goals. Her philosophy is rooted in the belief that true health remains undiscovered until the right conditions for it are created. Recognizing the unique challenges of our modern lifestyle, her approach is not about offering quick fixes, but about empowering each woman to craft her dream life and body one step at a time. Through a combination of skills, mentorship, and accountability, Dr. Karah leads her clients on a transformative journey towards lifelong health, wealth, and vitality. Welcome to the show, Dr. Karah.
Thank you, Jennie. It is such an honor to be here today.
Oh my gosh. When you and I first met, I know my audience is about to roll their eyes, I'm sure, out networking in the virtual networking world. We connected pretty darn quickly, just based on shared experiences, shared ways of being. And let's face it, we're in the same phase of life, it sounds like, from some of our conversations.
Exactly.
And I was looking at my podcast demographics based on where my followers are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, all the places, right? And a majority of my listeners are women who are 40 and older, which means if they haven't started going through perimenopause and menopause, they about to.
Yep, exactly. Well, they've probably been transitioning. They might just not be symptomatic at this point.
Right. Well, and the other interesting thing that I've learned, just because I've been paying attention to the perimenopause thing for a lot longer than I think most other people, is that there are symptoms that are related to perimenopause that we don't know are perimenopause. People have just told us they're part of aging. And it's like, no, these are some of the preemptive perimenopausal things. And I've talked about it on the show before, for me, myself. But how did you get into helping women in perimenopause hormonal stuff? Like, what drew you in this direction? Tell us your story, your journey.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. As a trained doctor, I get taught all of the things, and I wasn't as self-aware as I thought I was. And one Friday night, I had a couple cocktails because, I just absolutely love me some Tito's sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up about 7 times that night with hot flashes. And I was like, what is this? Where did this come from? Now, I'm 47 years old, so I've been transitioning for about a decade now. But I'm taught in medical school that the classic symptoms, right, that we're experiencing, like irregular periods, hot flashes, sleep disturbances, all those common ones, like the increased belly fat. I wasn't experiencing any of those. And so I didn't really realize that I was transitioning through perimenopause until I had those hot flashes. Well, that weekend was hell. I think I went through about 20 hot flashes after never experiencing one in my life.
Oh.
And, in the medical textbooks, it says that menopause is going to hit you like a ton of bricks. And I really think that's just because we're not educated on what we're seeing in the first, second, and third stages. We now know it in stage 4, where now we're experiencing those heavy duty, like life altering symptoms. So when I started doing the research for myself, it came across that 80% of women experience hot flashes. And I was like, there's 80% of us out here experiencing this hell right now. No, this is not acceptable. And, to lead what you had mentioned before is we make all of these things commonalities or like what's normal.
Yeah.
Oh, my belly fat is normal because I'm aging. Well, just because something is common does not mean that it's normal. And so we've normalized a lot of things that are not normal.
I'm feeling called out right now. And so are some of my audience members. I just sensed it. I felt it. Oh my gosh. Yes. So now, if I remember from some of our pre-recording conversations, you didn't start in the medical field. You went through training later. So you didn't go into medical school at 20, 21 years old, like the typical, and I'm putting air quotes around that, the typical doctor. Tell us where you started before that and what made you want to go through medical school when you did.
So I actually started off in marketing and relationship marketing is where I ended, but my degree was in marketing and advertising.
Okay.
And I spent about 5 years in a cubby inside of a cold, dark building. And I realized this was not for me. So I graduated college during the early 2000 rush when everything was really good. Everybody went into business. And then in 2008, the world collapsed.
Yeah.
I was in a career that kind of no longer was needed because the industry that I was in had completely disappeared overnight. And so I was like, okay, well, what else is out there for me? This is the universe telling me that this career choice was fantastic through my 20s and mid 30s, but what else is out there? And so I enrolled in a personal training program at a local community college. And I'm like, man, wait, you're telling me that I could get fit and learn how to like heal myself and make money at this? Like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I started going to the classes. I started as a personal trainer. I was associate within the Blackhawks hockey, Chicago. I did fitness testing for elite athletes and I loved it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Cool.
As a Blues fan, I'm like, sorry, it was the Blackhawks, but I know that's where you're from. So, yay for you. I
know I was a little farther north than you. So, I gravitated towards the Chicago.
Yeah.
Teams. But yeah, so that was revolutionary for me working with those elite athletes. And I saw a lot of the Blackhawks behaviors in nutrition and mindset and all of these wonderful things. And I was sitting down with a lady and she's like, there's this cool thing called naturopathic doctor. And I was like, what is that? So that put me on a path, a 10-year path, almost to the day of starting at the community college in the healthcare field and graduating with my medical degree in 2021.
That is awesome. I love that. And so you went the naturopathic way. So it's not the traditional Western medical degree that most people would think of. Okay, awesome, because I'm into that. Now, I come from, for any of my audience who doesn't know this about me, I do have a close relationship with Western medicine because I grew up with my father being a traditionally trained Western medicine physician. So I do have that connection to the Western medicine world, but in my last 15, 20 years have really started getting interested in these other more natural ways of doing this. And naturopathy is something that I've been like, it fascinates me, coming from, that world where take an aspirin, take a Tylenol, take a pill, take a do whatever. Now, that wasn't the kind of doctor my dad was in his last 10 years of practice, but certainly, that was how I grew up. It's like, you have a headache? Do this. Like, it wasn't, hey, maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you're stressed and you need to go like meditate and breathe a little bit. It was a very different thing. So the naturopathic piece there, that really feeds into the discussion around the hormones then, because you said that started your perimenopause symptoms hit you like at the ton of bricks the weekend where you had like 20 hot flashes. Now, knock on wood, I have not had it that bad. Mine usually come 1 or 2 in a night if I have them. And I have figured out some of the triggers that cause me to have them. And so I try and eliminate those for me. But was that around the time that you were finishing up your naturopathic journey? Or I shouldn't say journey, but the degree.
No, this was actually more recently that I experienced this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, let's go back a couple of years. So
Sure.
I knew the importance of balancing your hormones. I was taught that in medical school. I was taught the herbs that needed to be created, not as much lifestyle stuff, but I did have some tools in my tool belt. And I did know because of my age, I was perimenopausal. But so I started kind of actively getting in front of it, and I was using bioidentical hormones topically.
Okay.
And so when those hot flashes hit me, I was very surprised because I was using the bioidenticals. And so, right, it's supposed to minimize the hot flashes. And so I was like, there's a missing component to this because I took the steps in the herb world to avoid these. And now they're like, it's like a freight train coming at me.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that when we're running from the tiger, all the time. So we have an autonomic immune system, autonomic nervous system, and that autonomic nervous system runs in the background. And it's there for us back millions of years so that it was a survival mechanism. But nowadays, that autonomic sympathetic nervous system gets turned on when we get an email text or an email or a text. Or we're sitting in traffic and we have a road rage incident. Elicited, right? You know, you've driven in St. Louis. I just drove through St. Louis. I know how it is.
Yeah. Oh, we could talk for days.
Oh, exactly. So it just gets elicited a lot more frequently now than it was when we were being chased by tigers. And then I considered our hormone system like a stream. And now when you're running from the tiger, you're not thinking about procreating and reproduction and making babies.
Nope.
So most women experience a surge of adrenaline, stress every single day. And so that accumulates and our reproductive hormones are forgotten about. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's part of the missing piece is that stress will literally steal all of the raw ingredients to make that cortisol to protect you. And it won't leave any raw ingredients to make the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that we need for reproduction or to minimize our midlife perimenopausal symptoms.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Yes. Like I myself had my own aha moment, and so did somebody else. I don't know who, but somebody listening just went, okay, yeah, I'm so stressed out that my hormones are messed up. So now
And
what do
that's
we
why
do?
so many women, I'm sorry, that's why so many women are using the bioidenticals, but then they go and get their hormones tested every 3 to 6 months. And it's like, oh, now this month testosterone is too high. Or now this month estrogen is too low and progesterone's too high. It's because that we're stealing all of the raw ingredients while slapping on these bioidentical hormones for a solid 30 days when our cycles don't even reflect us secreting all of those hormones throughout all of those 30 days. Yeah.
That makes so much freaking sense. But then again, I've also there's a book that I read when I was trying to get pregnant starting about 17 years ago. And it was called Take Charge of Your Fertility. It's a fantastic book. But that's when I learned all those things about the hormone cycles and how all that works. Because the book, even though it's called Take Charge of Your Fertility, isn't about necessarily just for people who want to get pregnant. It can be for people who don't want to get pregnant. Like, how can you take this knowledge of your hormone cycles and your own personal cycle? Because it should be required reading for every woman to understand. It was very brilliantly done. And I had never equated that with the things you're talking about. This is holy shnikes. Okay. This is so good.
I was as blown away as you were because I was educated in this stuff.
Yeah.
I went through endocrinology classes. I went through the botanical classes. And I'm noticing a trend in most medical schools. It's like, okay, well, instead of prescribing a prescription through the conventional medical system, we're now, as naturopaths, starting to recommend botanicals based on diagnosis. We're literally both band-aiding. We're just band-aiding, one with a chemical and one with a nutraceutical. So there's no difference. We've lost the vitalism in our healthcare system these days. And the vitalism is creating the conditions for our bodies to work optimally.
Oh, yes. This is so freaking good. I love this because so now knowing this, so for people who are saying, okay, I'm ready to stop being stressed out so that my body can do what it needs to. I am ready to be more aware of what my hormone cycles are and all of that. What are some of the steps that we as women of a certain age can start doing or implementing in our life? Or what are the things you recommend? Now we have all this knowledge. Now what do we do?
Right, where do we start?
Yes.
We got to start, number one, with self-awareness. Because if we don't know where we're at, how do we know what to fix?
Okay.
So I always start my ladies off with a food journal. What are you eating? Because most of us are emotionally eating during perimenopause because we do have those mood fluctuations that I'm going to say aren't our fault.
Yeah.
My partner looks at me and he's like, I know it's not your fault, honey, but you're being mean right now. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. But food has a huge impact on our mood.
Yeah.
So where are you at?
Oh.
And I also start the ladies off with going to their primary care physicians and getting a prescription for a continued glucose monitor.
Oh.
Because insulin is also one of our survival hormones. So if we start with insulin, our food, and number two, we start with our stress, then we're off to the races because now we know what small things that we can implement in our lives that are going to have huge impacts on those two hormones that are going to trickle down and regulate our reproductive, our thyroid, all of our other endocrine hormones.
Okay. So let's start with food journaling, tracking what we're eating. Okay. And I've seen that work. I mean, that seems to work even for men. I mean, that's how my ex-husband lost a bunch of weight after we separated. He just started tracking what he was eating using one of those apps or whatever. I mean, he wasn't using a written journal. I mean, do you have a preference for one or the other, or is it whatever you use is best?
With my clients, whatever way you're going to write it down, whatever way you're going to remember. So if it's a piece of paper on the counter right by the fridge, then do it that way. Send me a picture. If it's better for you to do it in like an app on your phone, do it. Send me screenshots. Like, bottom line is you got to do it.
Right. That's so good. Okay. Good to know. So moving through that now. So somebody starts tracking their food. They start tracking, they go to their PCP and they get PCP is not, I mean, I'm not talking about the drug primary care provider. Sorry. As I mentioned, I come from the traditional Western healthcare system where PCP means not the drug that gets you all high, but primary care provider. Okay. Going to your primary and getting the continuous glucose monitor. Okay. So they can track what's going on with their insulin. All right. Where that's
what ends
going.
up happening is like what I do with my clients is they send me the food journal and then they send me their CGM and we can pair and figure out, is it a food that's dysregulating their insulin? Because half of America is diabetic. And the last statistic I read is approximately the remainder of that 50%, 70% are already in pre-diabetic stage.
I just raised my hand because, yes, the last time I went to my doctor, he was like, you're pre-diabetic with and that was a couple of years ago. So I've put on 50 pounds since then. So I'm probably technically diabetic at this point, but That's a whole other conversation. But anyway, enough about me and let's dig into more of this. So that helps you by the food journaling and seeing what's going on with the glucose monitoring, letting people know, okay, what their triggers are.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you have paper. I like the paper trail because when you're thinking about a trigger, a lot of people don't associate some things like chocolate is a trigger for hot flashes, which you would probably not know unless you Googled what the triggers are of hot flashes and read and researched it, or you saw in the CGM and your hot flash journal that, oh, wow, every time I eat this or I feel this emotion, then I get a trigger.
Okay. So it sounds like, and so you also then recommend, based on what you just said, then maybe also tracking any of your other symptoms, including hot flashes, things like that.
Yes, but I always start simple. Give people too many things to do. Think of like a New Year's resolution.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
95% of people, I think the statistic is by week 3, they've already said screw it. And that's just because we have this mindset where we have to do everything or nothing. And so I capitalize on that mindset and I give people one thing to do per week, and that's everything. And then they come back the next week and they feel so successful because they did that one thing and they were all in and all out.
That is so smart because you're absolutely right. The reason people don't stick with the traditional New Year's resolution, because I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to read more books and I'm going to make more money and I'm going to, like their resolution is 17 things long. And then they have zero focus. So I think that's why so many people gone to the word of the year or the phrase of the year, right? Because then it gives them that one singular focus. So that's interesting. Okay. Good to know. I love that. So if you could give one more tip to someone, because you and I could talk forever and you will be back and we'll talk more. We're going to dig more into this. If you could give one more tip to a perimenopausal woman or a woman who thinks she might be going through perimenopause or is going through perimenopause into her menopausal years, what's one more tip you would give to help her manage this transition?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Jenny. Get outside and go for a walk.
And feeling called out.
So, yeah. Oh, I actually schedule it on my Google Calendar now because I'm as guilty as everybody else. Like we're women entrepreneurs. We're doing everything, right? 12-hour days. We're accustomed to doing that. And next thing you know, 6 hours has gone by. We haven't eaten, we haven't drank any water, and we haven't gotten up and moved. But the power of a walk not only helps our circulation, so now the blood's flowing and oxygen's flowing to our brain. The sun is on our skin, so we're increasing our vitamin D profile, which helps us middle-aged women with our bone density. Vitamin D is a hormone,
Yes. Yes. For anybody who didn't know that, I'm one of the few in the world who knows that vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone.
Yep. Imperative for us to have optimal vitamin D levels in our 30s and 40s. And that way, when we get on our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we're not still battling bone density issues or even some of our traditional hot flash. Our traditional perimenopausal symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, things like that.
Yes. And maybe that's why I don't have 20 of them in a weekend, is because my vitamin D is something that I have done well with supplementing because I probably know way more about vitamin D than the average human just because of my dad's research and everything he info dumped, because my ADHD comes from somewhere and it's my dad. But yeah, he info dumped as he was learning about vitamin D, info dumped it into me. And I'm a former science teacher, so I had a lot of the basic science knowledge to retain a lot of that. And I also found it interesting. And so that's one of my weirdo ADHD passions is vitamin D knowledge and things. So yeah, it's something that I've maintained. My vitamin D levels have been in the optimum levels for a long time because I've been aware of all of that. Like literally as I was reading Taking Charge of Your Fertility, my dad was like, all right, you need to get your vitamin D up too, because that's going to make everything else work better. So if you want to get pregnant, here you go. And so that's something from 17-ish years ago. I've been managing my vitamin D levels for a long time. And even if I don't go to my primary, I'll go on Amazon and get a vitamin D testing kit and just randomly test it from time to time because I just want to know. And I don't feel like I need to go do all the other things, even though I probably do. I know. And my vitamin D is managed pretty darn well through supplementation because I do live in St. Louis where best time to get sun is May through July-ish. And then the rest of the year, the amount made is minuscule in my area. So anybody who's further north, it's even worse.
I mean, I was brought up in Chicago. The first time that I tested my vitamin D level was in medical school, and it was 23. And that is the average for most Americans.
Yeah. Mine was 13 the first time I tested it 17 years ago. I was 13. But I am a white girl. Like, I don't go outside because if I think about the sun, I burn. If I'm out too long, like, it doesn't take much. And so I really wasn't spending much time in the sun because I was trying to avoid skin cancer because I have a family history of skin cancer and blah, 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 blah. Right.
Yep.
And so I wasn't doing those things. So so to get back to your tip, because now we've gone down a whole other road there, is the get out and take a walk. I felt when you said that I was not the only person who felt called out because you were like, yeah, we find that we haven't eaten and whatever. And like, as you were saying that, I was like, I haven't eaten today yet. I've had 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
That's been my nutrition for today. I have not even drank water today, guys. Literally 2 cups of coffee, and we're recording this. It is now 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. That's
no wonder my stuff is all over the place. My blood sugars, like right now, it's probably bottomed out.
Yeah, pretty low right now. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Girl.
And so when you go to eat now, focus on protein and vegetables, because if you go and you ingest those carbs, your blood sugar is just going to skyrocket because you haven't given it any nutrition yet today.
Yep. All right. Good to know. I will do that. And so are all the other people who are listening to this now who also went all day without eating so far. Now they're going to go find their cheese and veggies in their fridge like I am and start there. Oh my gosh. Karah, I want to keep talking to you, but we got stuff to do. You got stuff to do. And the Badass Crew has stuff to do. So, but before we wrap things up, you have put together a really fabulous guide to help people because if they want to go further down the hormone rabbit hole of what's affecting my body, what's happening to me, you have a guide. Tell us about the guide and how people can get it.
Yeah, well, so for most of us middle-aged ladies out there, when we were born, there weren't many chemicals in use back in the 60s and 70s. In the 80s, it just blew up. 90s, they just started spraying us. Like, I'm sure we can all attest to the chemtrails that are up in the sky. We just see the planes, the chemtrails. They're spraying absurd amounts of chemicals that are now on our food, in our air, and in our water. 90,000 to be exact, and less than 200 have been actually tested for safety.
Wow.
Our FDA allows 2,000 to be in use in the United States that are illegal in every other country.
Yep.
And they're causing us harm. And there's a group of them called endocrine disrupting hormones that are actually leading to our obesity rates and a lot of our hormone issues. And we can control it if we know it. And so I created an amazing resource with 3 of the most common household chemicals that are sabotaging your hormones and how you can reduce exposure and protect your family. Because a lot of our chronic diseases are on behalf of exposure to these chemicals for the last several decades. So in the guide, I have 4 really easy ways to stop or to reduce your exposure in a long-term setting. I created this guide as not only just to create more awareness around the fact that these chemicals are doing such harm to our bodies, but eliminating these chemicals from our lifestyles. I'm sorry. It just started raining here in Texas and it has not rained in over 3 months, y'all. Like I feel so right now. And I'm like, Jennie, what in the universe? Oh, girl.
Yay.
But we don't realize how much harm these chemicals are doing in our lives and to the people that we love.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's going to be a lifelong journey because, again, small changes equal big result. So it's going to just give you a step-by-step on how to start removing them.
I love that. All right. So my badass crew, my regular listeners, they already know that all they have to do to get this guide is go to the show notes, and we've got a link that will take them directly there. Just in case this is somebody's first time ever listening to the show, though, what I'm going to tell you is if you want Dr. Karah's 3 common household chemicals that are sabotaging your hormones guide, then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under Dr. Karah's beautiful picture, and you will see our show notes or episode notes, depending on which app you are in, or if you're on YouTube, it's the YouTube video description. Scroll underneath the video. You'll have a link that goes directly to the guide so that you can go grab that guide from her website and start taking care of getting those 3 chemicals out of your life and out of the lives of your children. Because I don't know about you, but my 2 kids, both born female, they're probably going to be affected by the same hormone disrupting chemicals that I am being affected by. And I want to make sure that they're not dealing with that either. I want to make their lives, we as parents want to make our kids' lives better than our own. And this is one thing that we can do for not just for ourselves, but for our families. Dr. Karah, thank you so much for this. This is awesome because I had my own so many aha moments from this, as I'm sure you saw, because we can see each other on the Zoom video. Anybody who's potentially watching this may go, oh my God, look at, yeah, Jennie had a major aha moment there because jaw dropped, hit the floor. I mean, you are brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance here.
Oh, Jennie, it's always an honor to have a conversation with you. I always enjoy it. I always laugh. We always have, our camaraderie is just so dynamic. So I really
Oh, I love it. And I'm so glad you're here sharing this because I know we are going to help so many women with this. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. And of course, badass crew. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. You and I had chatted at the beginning of this. If someone wants to connect with you and they want to start following you on social media, what's your preferred platform?
Definitely Facebook.
Okay, awesome. So of course, when you guys are scrolling through the show notes, trying to find, the information for the guide, make sure you also go follow her on Facebook. We have the link directly to her profile. So you can make sure you're going to the right Karah Kruse profile. I don't know how many of them are on Facebook, but now we know they're going to get the right one to follow you on Facebook and send her a message, send her gratitude. We all know that it is super important that if you got something out of today from hearing from her, please go send her a message on Facebook and let her know that, hey, thank you. This was so helpful for me. I heard you on the Badass podcast. We want to make sure that she knows that her time here sharing this brilliance was worth it for you. So thank you again, Dr. Karah. Amazing, amazing opportunity for people to be able to start working on their own health. Because as you and I talked pre-recording, when we take care of our health, when we take care of our hormones, guess what happens? We get energy. And the wealth explodes. Guys, I mean, if you are struggling in your business and you're struggling with your health, it's because they are innately connected. If you don't have the energy, then you don't have the energy to do your business. And that's what we want to help you with today. So, Dr. Karah, for like the 3rd or 5th time, I don't know how many times I've said it, thank you for being here. I so appreciate you. And of course, badass crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.